Good morning, guys. The subject of this little video is why I like China. Fact to be known, I'm in China for a lot of reasons. But being in a place out of necessity or career or work or love or family is different than liking where you're at. And so I want to talk a little bit about why I like being in China. And I do. I really like it here. And for you to understand why I like China, why I love China so much, you have to understand what matters to me, what is important to me. When I was growing up, I grew up in the 60s and the 70s. I grew up in a small town. The town is called East Brady, Pennsylvania. It's just a nice local mall. And this is what China's like. A lot of nice malls, a lot of nice public spaces. All well maintained, all new. If it's 10 years old, it gets torn down and something new's put up. In fact, Chinese feel that anything that's older than 10 years is a failure. Strange, huh? Nice day outside. We had a couple of general stores run by families. We had a barber shop run by a family. We had a ice cream stand run by another family. All these family establishments, these little family businesses, were just that. A family would have a business and they would make a little bit of money from that business. There was even a little clothing general goods store. And the town didn't need that much, but we had everything we needed. If we needed to go somewhere else, we would go the half an hour drive to Katanning or Butler and go to a Kmart and then later on a Walmart.
Mama!
057 white.
White 057, white 057.
Hold up.
Hold it. Hey, baby, baby, yeah. Yeah. Double, big, yeah. Yeah, baby, yeah.
When I was growing up, all our needs were met. We could just walk down the store. I could go to the local ice cream parlor known as Steve's which was later bought up when Steve died by a guy named Swede, so it's now called Swedes. There were 3 booths in the back there and a long counter. It was just this tiny place. When I was growing up, we used to go there. My mom would give me $1 and we'd come back with a big bag of candy. Again, each piece. This is a downtown basement section of the mall. These stores are all what you might call fast food little snack shops. Xiao Chi in Chinese. Noodle shop. And here is Chinese tofu magician. Tofu magician. And this is as you can tell, there's all kinds. There's a few Western places, like this Dairy Queen. But the Western places are usually too high priced. And they don't offer that much of a selection. This is a bottle opener for your can of beer, to a table lamp for your living room. One thing that they had was a cigar store Indian, because you could buy cigars there and cigarettes. And then they started restricting that. I suppose they threw away the cigar store Indian. It'd probably be worth a lot of money right now, I would imagine. I always liked that thing. I don't know why I liked it. Just this big carved Indian out of this big old tree. Who figures? And across the street, there was an old guy. Well, in my mind, he was old. I don't know how old he was. Maybe he was in his 70s. He knew the lore of the whole area. The story of Captain Brady and how he settled East Brady. The great Indian battles, where the old buildings used to be and who used to live in them. He was a repository of historical information. He stayed inside most of the time, but every now and then he would be out on the porch on a rocking chair or glider. A lot of people still had gliders. And we'd ride up in our bikes and talk to him. Some of the other kids in my class really thought he was the shits. They thought he was great. I thought he was okay, but maybe it was because he's across the street from me. And that's the kind of community I grew up in. Kids are playing on the streets, baseball game down the lane, people
this is a weekend meal. It's a Wednesday. I'm in my local Sichuan restaurant. We've got some people going on. Just a group of guys there having a meal and drinking some wine and white wine. Got my baby's chair all set up with her baby bottle. We got some basic rice here, you know, because we're going to be having a decent meal later on, and a little bit of wine to drink with it. It's a nice time during this
exploring the many
March.
railroad lines. Mothers preparing fine meals for the families. The husbands out there working in the steel mills or the coal mines or whatever pursuit that they were part of. I could walk down the street. I could smell the different meals that were being cooked. One house would have a pot roast, another one would have a lasagna.
This is a tea drinking.
Sometimes the mothers would come out and say, hi Bobby, how's your mama doing? Tell her I said hi. Then I went to university, went to the Navy, and after majestic training, I re-entered the world, and it was a different world. It seemed like corporate interests and moneyed interest had taken over America. People drove in their cars all the time and ate fast food all the time. Husbands and wives both had to work. Tyrannical bosses. Government that routinely broke the laws for one emergency or some other emergency and some other problem. It all seemed so out of whack, honestly. It just seemed so out of whack. During the time towards the end of my stint, when it was time for me to get retired, I was doing my affirmations, and all through my retirement.
This is Sichuan beef with mushrooms. Yeah, looks pretty good, huh? This is a nice, tasty piece. Looks good, huh? I think I'll wash it down with a nice glass of wine. Nice food on a Wednesday evening when it's kind of rainy out.
Kind of environment that I wanted to relive. Maybe not the same, but similar. Eating good food, being known in your community, a child-friendly place that's safe. Mom and pop stores where you walk by, they ask you, hey, have you eaten? Come on over, I got plenty of extra food. And so you ask me, why do I like China? And that's the reason. China today is what America used to be. Oh, sure, it's new skyscrapers and fast hyperspeed trains. QR codes for everything, and cell phones and Wi-Fi and 6G and all that stuff. But really, everything boils down to a sense of community, purpose. And that's what I like about China. I've lived here long enough to know what's good and what's bad. And for me, getting that smile from the Baoan, a wave from the lady who's sewing on her porch, my daughter playing with the other kids, playing kick the ball or riding her little bicycle at lightning speed. These are all important to me. And I think that they should be important to most people. A sense of community, right? That's what's important. You take away that sense of community, and then what really do you have left, right? You're just a clog in a machine. During the 90s, I rode in the car to a work where I sat in a room, a cubicle that was gray, sterile gray, on a gray chair with a gray table. And the computer screen was gray. And I processed papers in this little room, and then lunch came, and then I went out in my little car, got myself fast food, and then came right back because we only had a half an hour lunch. And I'd spend the entire day in this gray cubicle. Then I'd get in the car, and I'd fight traffic back home. And nobody really talked to each other. I went home, and at that time, my wife, she was suffering from mental illness, so we had to go out and eat a lot, or I would have to cook. It was a very lonely, solitary life. People are not meant to be cogs in a machine. If you're working in a situation where you're a cog in a machine, then break free from that. Maybe you can't leave that job. But who's to say you can't buy a Starbucks coffee or McDonald's coffee or Dunkin' Donuts coffee for a coworker? Say, here's a cup of coffee. Let's talk a little bit about the game or something. You see somebody's desk and they got some pictures of their cats. Ask them about their cats. Talk about yours. Forge relationships and smile a lot. That's what I really like about China. People smile here a lot. Much more than in America. Oh, you won't see too many people holding doors like they do in America, that's for sure. Especially in the bigger cities. But China's a pretty populous nation. You do start doing that, and you'll be standing there for hours holding doors for people. That's a little bit culturally different. You can't change the world, but you can change your little part of it. Go to a place where you're significant. Become part of that community. Volunteer a lot. Make friends. Force making friends over and over and over again until you actually have friends. Your life, your quality of life will improve. Feed the little wild dogs and cats near you. Be friendly to all. Say good, kind words to people. That's what I like about China. And that's why I'm here. A couple years ago, I had to go on an interview. It's a supplemental interview in support of a Zelda visa that I had. All people who are on Zelda visas were being interviewed. secondary interviews to determine, their suitability for maintaining that visa. Guy spoke very good English, and we were just talking. He asked me some basic questions. And one of the last things he asked me, he says, "What do you like about China?" And oh my God, I started talking about food. I wouldn't shut the hell up. I started talking about food. I should have talked about this subject, about how I'm part of a community, but at that time I was living in Shenzhen, and Shenzhen's pretty big. The sense of community is a lot harder than a small, tiny town of Zhuhai that's only got 1 million people. And talking about food. Sure, I don't eat the kinds of foods that I had in the 70s, 60s, but I eat well. Yesterday, I had some pork roast with potatoes and carrots. This was cooked Chinese style and served in this stone crock. And it's just bubbling away. The meat was just so soft. Oh my God. Or, I eat pork bellies, which it's sort of like, it's bacon, but instead of cutting it thin and cooking it till it's crunchy, you cut it thick, like 1 inch square thick. And then it just sits there and cooks in the fat. So the meat just breaks apart. You take your chopsticks or your fork, and it just breaks apart so easily. Rice, breads, potatoes, drinking down with a nice glass of wine. Or beer, if that's your preference. My doctor says I can't be drinking too much beer anymore, and I notice a big difference. It's a cold beverage, and it slows my body down. So I have to drink something a little bit more peppy. So I drink a warm drink, which wine is a warm drink. If you're in the States, a lot of Americans have a tendency to eat cold foods. It's not temperature-wise. It's in relation to how it interacts with your body. Things that interact with your body can be hot, neutral, or cold. And most American foods are cold foods, and you drink it down with cold drinks. I think that's one of the reasons why American lifespans are shortening. You guys need to eat warmer foods, like the kind of foods that you used to eat in the 60s and 70s, like the recipes I'm putting on Metallic Man, right? Meatloaves, mashed potatoes, fresh peas. You shuck those peas. Nice bread. Get yourself some bread. Pop it in the oven or pop it in the microwave. Make sure it's warm. Serve it with a good drink. If you're not an alcoholic drinker, it's no problem. How about some tea? There's a world of great teas out there. But anyways, I'm getting sidetracked here, and I like food. So it's the people and your interaction with them that decides your happiness. And you'll find, I think, that the happier you are, the more service to other oriented you become. Unhappy people tend to be service for selves. They're trying to make their way, carve out their life. You need to be service to others. Doesn't take much. Just become part of the community. So the reason why I like China is because it reminds me of the society that I grew up in, the Chinese society. And that's what China is. It's not what you're seeing on these neocon websites. It's not what they're talking about on Fox News or Politico or CNN. It's nothing at all that resembles that. It's just a community of people working together for the common good, being nice to each other. And that's what I really like about China. And when you come to China, if you come to China, when you come to China, you will be totally welcomed. They're a very welcoming society. They're not like the Japanese. The Japanese is a closed society. You'll never become Japanese. You're just always going to be a foreigner. But in China, they'll welcome you. They welcome me. They ask me where I'm from. I'm always the Waigaran. And then we get to talking. And they're like, oh, so you're Chinese in your heart. They always smile because they're very accepting. Make your life a good one. Be where you want to be. Do the best you can possibly be where you're at. Eat well, drink well. Make an impact in the lives of others in a positive way. Be nice to cats, be nice to dogs. If you see somebody in need, help them. You see a stranger, smile. Be a little bit nice. Give a stranger a random compliment. If there's a store that you start frequenting, a restaurant, something, go in there, strike up a conversation with the people. If it's a local family-owned business, know the people, direct your business there. Unless it's something that you can only get on the internet or at Walmart, start using the family businesses, the family-run businesses, the family gas stations. Sure, it might be a little bit more expensive. It's a family-run business. Support them.